What is up, everybody? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Okay, so today I'm running you guys through a very special and exclusive training. This training is the social selling strategy. Okay, so this is really an outline of the key elements that I incorporate into my social media strategy that has allowed me to make a consistent and continually growing income through my online business. Okay, so maybe you are already in the online business space, maybe you want to step into the online business space. Either way, this training is going to be extremely helpful for you. And depending where you're at in your journey as well, like maybe you're looking to sign your first client, or maybe you're looking to make that jump to $10,000 months. Wherever you are at, again, this training is going to be so relevant and so helpful for you, because this is essentially the key pillars that I have continuously evolved and revised and improved within my own business that has enabled me to see that growth from day one to today. Right now, on day one, obviously my strategy was not as in depth as what it is now, but there's still the same foundational principles that I was using from the beginning of my business journey. However, these principles have evolved, they've expanded, and they've become a heck of a lot more potent across the last 16 months. Okay, so I hope you enjoy this training. I hope you find it really helpful. Make sure you do have your pen and your paper ready, because this is a training that does not have any visual aids with it. So it's important that, if you do need to stop this training at any point to make, any specific notes or anything like that, feel free to do so. This is self-paced, of course, so you can take it at whatever pace you like. Now, the three key pillars that we're going to be tapping into in this training is really looking at your branding and your messaging. Branding and messaging is one. Creating content that converts, which is two. And generating leads, which is three. And these are the three key pillars that I use, that I implement, that I am constantly evolving within my social media strategy. Okay. So maybe some of these areas you've got a little bit more down pat than the others. Maybe you feel like you don't know what you're doing at all with any of them. Okay, either way, we're going to go through them all, and I'm going to be highlighting for you guys like what it is that you actually need to be focusing on within each. Okay, so then you can step away from this training with a clear insight of what this shit actually needs to be in your social media strategy. Because I feel like we hear that term so often, like social media strategy. But then do you actually understand what your social media strategy is, how it works? And how I like to explain social media strategies is it's an ecosystem. It's an ecosystem of all of these smaller parts that together, that collectively create a whole. So you can't really have a social media strategy with just one of these elements and without the others, because if you do, then your strategy is not going to be working for you. You're going to be pouring all this time and energy and effort into something that's not even tapping into the full potential and the full depth of the results that you could be seeing. So let's have a look at pillar number one. Okay. Actually, before we dive into pillar number one, I kind of want to share with you guys the single sentence outcome. When you're done with this training, what you'll be able to see. What you'll be able to see is that shift, that clarity, that congruency. Right? Everything within your social media will all of a sudden begin to be more cohesive. And when you have that, what happens? Well, the results follow. Your community builds, you're attracting more of your dream clients, you're converting more of your dream clients, you're making more money, you're making more of an impact, right? So this is why this is really important. And I'm sure right now you're struggling with a couple different things. Maybe you don't know where to start when it comes to selling on Instagram. Maybe you don't understand the psychology behind how to actually utilize content. Maybe you're just struggling with attracting clients, or maybe you're attracting clients but struggling to book your calls. No matter what it is you're struggling with, this is going to help you overcome that. So let's dive into it now. Okay, let's dive into it now. The first pillar we're going to look at is your branding basics. So branding is super important. When we think about branding, what do you think of? Putting it in layman terms, branding is referring to like the feeling that someone gets from you, from your company, from your business, from your personal brand, from your page, right? When we're working in the space of social media, we really are looking at like social personal brands rather than branding ourselves as a company, because studies are actually showing that people are more willing to invest into a personal brand rather than a company. I think it was Revlon. Revlon's an Australian makeup brand, just went bankrupt and just had to close down. Why? Because people don't want to buy from a company anymore. They want to buy from an individual, a personal brand. They want to buy from Kylie Jenner, Selena Gomez, Rihanna. They want to buy from these people that they like, know, and trust. And so that's why your branding is really important. Okay. So a couple things that I want you guys to be doing when you are like going over your branding is getting really clear on what your brand messaging is. Your brand message is so important. This is like why people are going to come to you, why they're going to be attracted to you, why they want to work with you. If you don't have a brand message, then you're probably going to find there's a lot of incongruency between all of the things that you're putting out there. And I say that incongruency, I mean to the viewer, to the person who is like receiving and viewing your content, they're going to feel a bit lost, right? Your messaging might be a bit mixed. It might not all be congruent, clean. Clarity is key. So you want to get your brand message down pat first and foremost, because from there, you'll start to like build everything out. You know, that's where your content then follows from, right? It's all built around that brand message, and that brand message is what's going to help you build that community, the community that's behind your brand. Now, with your branding basics as well, we also want to be looking at the different elements that actually help convey this brand message. And what we use to convey our brand message is a branding kit. And so what this branding kit should consist of is different tools. And that's where like your fonts, your colors, your shapes, all of that starts to come into play. You piece it together into this beautiful brand kit, which shows you what you need to do, which guides you through that process of getting the clarity around what your brand is, what the feeling is behind it, what the message is behind it, and then actually like implementing that into your business and actually showing that and sharing that with your audience, right? If you lack clarity around what your branding is, then 100% your ideal client, your audience is also going to lack the clarity around what your branding is. So creating that brand kit helps us gain that clarity that we need, okay? And this will help us when it comes to creating that congruency with our feed as well. If you go and have a look at my feed on Instagram, you will see how congruent it actually is. Maybe I can pull it up now. Let's see if I can pull it up now while we're on this training, right? And it doesn't happen overnight, you know, getting that congruency with your actual branding, your actual social media, it doesn't happen overnight, right? Let me share my screen for you guys now. Because when I first started my business, my social media branding was not where it needed to be. It was not as congruent as it should have been. But now you come and look at my page and there's a really strong and clear brand identity. And that's what you want to create for yourself as well, right? Right? So that's what I want you to be aiming for yourself. Creating this sort of clarity and congruency between the graphics, between the messages, between the content, between everything that you're putting on this platform. Now, if you scroll all the way down to ages and ages ago, I probably won't scroll down here now, but you'd be able to tell. Once upon a time, my branding was not as congruent as it needs to be. And so I changed that. I figured out where the gaps were. I figured out where I was falling short, what I wasn't doing as well as I could have been doing. And from there, I started actioning and implementing the changes that needed to be made. So what's really helpful with that is if you get someone to do a social media audit for you, right? Getting a coach or getting someone who is really aware and like confident in the branding and business space to do that for you, because they're going to see things that the normal eye can't see. I'm going to see things on your Instagram page that your eye or someone else's eye won't be able to see. Why? Because my brain is programmed to look for these gaps, because this is what I do. So having a social media audit is really, really helpful for improving your brand clarity and brand messaging. Now, having this congruency within your branding is so damn important, because that is what builds the trust. That is what builds the trust. And people are not going to know you, not going to buy from you unless they trust you. But they're also not going to buy from you unless they like you, right? This is where that like, no, trust framework comes into play, which I've spoken about time and time and time again on different trainings and workshops and everything that I've done, even on my Instagram, on live streams and all of that. You want people to like, know, and trust you before they buy from you. What I mean by that is someone's not going to trust you unless they know you, but they're not going to want to know you unless they actually like you. And so that's why your branding is so important. And that's why the presentation of your social media is really important as well, because that is the opportunity that you have, right? The way you show up online is the opportunity, sometimes the only opportunity you have for people to actually have the ability, the chance to like, know, and trust you. Okay, so super important there. Now, the final 2 points I want to touch on when we're looking at branding is authenticity and showing your true self. And this really comes back to this concept of like, know, trust, trust and rapport, because someone's not going to like, know, or trust you if you are showing up inauthentically, and if you are not expressing your true self, if you are presenting yourself as somebody else. And it's something that I think so many people make the mistake of when they start a business. And this was something that I even made the mistake of. It's because we see all these other people that are doing amazing and we think, oh, I've got to be them. I've got to be like them in order to succeed. But they're succeeding because they're not being like anyone else. They are being like themselves. They are being their authentic self. Now, maybe you also get these limiting beliefs that come into your mind where you think, oh, I'm not good enough. I need to show up differently. People are going to judge me if I show up as my authentic self. That is where the inner work comes into play, that mindset work on your self-belief, your self-worth, your self-love, your confidence, all of that, so that you can actually step into your own authentic expression. But if you build a brand around inauthenticity, you are not going to see results. Period. You are not going to see results. And this brings us to the final point on branding basics, which is your social presence and energy. Okay? Your social presence and energy is so important. And when I say social presence, I don't mean the amount of followers that you have. That is not social presence. Your social presence is how you show up in your online space. Again, coming back to your authenticity, how you express yourself online. Okay, so you need to make sure that, first of all, you are bringing an authentic and aligned energy that is truly connected and in alignment with yourself. And secondly, you need to make sure that you are actually showing up. You might have 10,000 followers on Instagram, but if you don't have an actual social presence there, you're not going to build that community, and therefore you're not going to build that the backbone, that community behind your brand. So you need to actually have a social presence, which really comes into play in this next step that we're going to talk about, which is like really the content side of things. So that's pillar number 1, branding basics. Okay, I hope that like overview of key areas within my branding strategy, within my overall social media ecosystem, helps you with starting to map out your own. Now, the second thing that we want to look at is our content strategy. We want to make sure we are creating content that converts. And I say creating content that converts because you might be consistently creating content right now, but it might not be converting for you. You might not be seeing sales coming as a result of it. You might still be getting onto sales calls and hearing the objections, I can't afford it, or being told no. And if that's what you're consistently hearing on sales calls, there is a huge gap in your social media strategy. And it's potentially in this area of your content, because your content needs to be priming your audience to buy, right? To either automatically make the purchase or to buy once they're on that sales call with you. So when it does come to obviously creating content that converts, like number one, knowing your ideal client, and I mean knowing your ideal client. Because if you don't know who your ideal client is, and if you're not really specific on that, you're not going to know how to communicate to them, how to talk to them, how to speak to them. You're not going to know what energy you need to approach them with, right? And it's so important. You need to understand, like, where are they at in their journey? Where is it that they want to be? And what are the struggles that are holding them back from being at that place that they want to be? What are their characteristics? How do they show up? And then from knowing these things, from having these awarenesses, you can then understand how to speak to them, how to translate the value of what it is you have to offer over them, how to nurture them, how to look after them, what to actually share with them, what to actually serve them with. So important to understand your ideal client. Because if you don't have that clarity, then you're just going to be talking to everybody. And if you're just talking to everybody, you're going to be making sales to nobody. Because everybody isn't your ideal client. Everybody doesn't need the solution that you offer. Everybody doesn't want to like you and work with you, right? So we need to know who that somebody is that does, that says yes to you, to your service, to your energy, authenticity, all of it. And something important with this as well, when it comes to like knowing your audience, right? Knowing your audience is freaking crucial, guys, when you're in this content creation area. Knowing your audience really also requires you to deeply understand your audience. When I say deeply understand your audience, I'm talking about understanding the psychology behind why the heck they're going to buy from you. Understanding the different emotional stages in which these audience members are in as well. Sorry, the different buyer stages in which these audience members are in as well. Because there's so many different stages. I talk about this on my Instagram lives a lot, right? There's your hottest leads and there's your coldest leads. And then there's all these different types of leads in between. You need to know all of those different stages that your audience is at, because you need to communicate to each and every single one of those people in a different way. Because how you would talk to your hottest lead is not how you would talk to your coldest lead. And that is certainly not how you would talk to the people in the middle. So our content really needs to be priming everyone, no matter what stage in their journey they are at. We need to be priming all of these people through the content, through different pain points, 2 different psychological triggers, 2 different emotional triggers, so that we can be priming them at whatever stage they're at to get to that point of sale, to that point of, I want to work with you, to get to that point of saying yes on the sales call. Instead of saying, no, I can't afford it, they're going to start saying, I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to find a way to afford it. Do you know how many people I have been experiencing in the past 6 months who come to me and they don't say, I can't afford it. They say, I am going to make it happen, because I have so clearly communicated through my content, through my social presence, the level of impact and transformation that I can provide them on the mindset, the spiritual, the business level, right? And that's freaking badass, that people will go out of their way to find a way to make it work, to find the money to work with me. And that's what I want your audience to be doing with you as well. But it takes actually understanding your audience on that deeper level and actually understanding why people buy and the different stages in which they're at and the different emotional triggers that are going to get them over the line. So when I talk about knowing your ideal client, I'm talking about this depth of understanding of who your ideal client is, but not just knowing them, but knowing how to implement that and translate that into the content that you actually create. And when it comes to this as well, another really important element that we want to be looking at is consistency. We want to be looking at how consistently you are showing up in the online space, how consistent your messaging is, how consistent you are with the delivery of your value, right? Consistency is so important because, again, if we're coming back to that like, no trust factor, no one's going to trust someone who's inconsistent with posting online. If you cannot consistently post content, one small piece of content every single day of the week, how the heck are people going to believe that you can show up and support them consistently on a deeper level within their business or within their mindset or within whatever it is that you deliver, right? So how you show up online transmutes or transmits this image or this perception of how you will show up for them. So consistency is really freaking important, guys. And the final sort of things that I want to touch on when we're looking at this creating content that converts area is obviously the content itself, the types of content that you should be producing. Like, we've really covered the ideal client there, and now it's like the types of content that you should be producing. So what we're talking about here is your static feed posts, your carousel posts, your video posts, your reels, your stories, your IGTVs, your live streams. These are all different forms of content that you can be putting out there in the Instagram space. And each of these types of content actually serve different purposes. And so you need to understand the difference between each content form and why you should use it. So I'm going to give you guys a brief overview. Okay, feed content. This is for high value delivery to nurture your existing audience. Nurture your existing audience. Prime your existing audience to want to work with you. So you're going to deliver education, value, right? This is the high value stuff. This is where you show your knowledge and expertise. This is where you share your personal journey, the transformation you create for yourself, and also the transformation you've created for other people. And then when we're talking about reels, right? When we're talking about reels, this is all about reach. So reels is for reach. Now, when we're talking about reach, it's like going and connecting with new audiences. So reels aren't about nurturing your existing audience. Reels are about finding and attracting new people in, which means this needs to be really high attraction marketing content, things that's going to grab people's attention. And then what we want to look at is your stories. Your stories is where you sell. I talk about this all the time on Instagram. I get this question so often. What is the sort of content that I need to create? How do I use the different types of content on Instagram? This is the key, guys. Stories is for selling. Reels is for attracting. Feed is for nurturing and priming. Okay, so you want to be selling through your stories. That's why you're showing up like in the moment, like as your physical self, right? This is you. This is where people actually get to connect with you as a human instead of you as a still image or instead of you as a reel, right? This is where they get to connect with you. And this is where you need to be sharing how they can work with you. And then when it comes to live streams is the final one that I want to touch on. Live streams is all about, again, like strengthening the community that you have and strengthening that like, no trust factor. So when it comes to doing live streams, what you need to be doing is showing up, developing your social presence, being physically there and connecting and engaging with your audience, because the more you show up in the moment and interact with them on that live, that physical level, the more they're going to like, know, and trust you. And you can provide a totally different depth of value here as well. I would honestly say the depth of value that you can provide on a live stream compares to the depth of value you can provide on a podcast. And arguably an even greater depth of value because there's that live connection element. So that's what I want you guys to think about with the different types of content that you should be incorporating into your ecosystem. And I believe that's the final thing I want to share on content that converts. Let me have a look at my dot points. Yeah. That is what I want to share for you guys there. So I hope that helps you. That outlines the framework, the foundations, the points that you should be checking in that content that converts, in the content creation element of your strategy. Now, of course, each of these elements go a heck of a lot deeper, but for the sake of this training, that is where we're going to pause for today. And we're going to step into the final element of the 3-part social media strategy, the social ecosystem. I love the word ecosystem that I'm sharing with you guys today. Now, the third part is generating leads and optimizing that lead generation. Lead generation, that sounded so weird. Yeah, generating leads and optimizing that lead generation. Now, what we want to think about is not just growing a following, but growing an engaged and active audience. What's the point on having 10,000 followers if only 1,000 of those people are actually interested in you? Or if 100 of those people only want to buy from you and no one else really cares. We want to build a audience, a community of highly engaged and active followers. We want to build a platform, right, that everyone who is there with the intention to connect and learn from you. They are there because they see that there is value that you can deliver them. Okay. So what we want to do is there's different ways that we can actually utilize lead generation. If we're talking about, let's just talk specifically about optimizing your existing audience. Okay, the best way in which I go about this is actually utilizing launch phases to guide my content strategy and to guide my lead generation approaches. Now, there's a lot of depth that we can go into here, too much depth for the purpose of this training, right? But actually having an understanding of how launches work, the 4 different phases of the launches and the purpose of each of those phases as well, understanding what type of audience members you're actually communicating with between each of the phases. Like this really comes back, guys, to that bias psychology and the different stages at which your followers are at, you know, from the hottest to the coldest and everything in between. The launch phases actually intentionally communicate to each audience type. It uses specific languages, specific focus points, specific pain points or emotional triggers, I should say, specific emotional triggers to actually prime them towards purchasing. And so let's say, for example, the hottest people in your audience, they're going to be the most active to buy when you use this framework. And then the coldest people, they may not buy in that first launch that you do, but that first launch you do is going to move them from being at this end, the freezing cold end of the spectrum, to at least sitting in the middle, right? Which means the next launch you do, they're going to be even closer to that point of purchase. So that's why I utilize launch phases, because it is a really freaking powerful and in-depth way to actually utilize the content you're creating and ensure that you are speaking to all of the different audience members you have at all of the different buyer stages as well. And I've created a really powerful template that actually guides you through doing that guides you through each of the launch phases and shows you which types of buyers, which people you're speaking to at each phase and how to actually speak to them, what emotional triggers to be tapping into as well. And that's something that is available inside my social selling series and also my business academy, my Aligned Coaching Academy. So that's something that you would have to take that next step into if you do want to dive a lot deeper into implementing into your own business ecosystem, your social media ecosystem. But what I want to talk about next is, of course, the types of leads that we're going to be generating. Okay, when you are like utilizing social media for business, there's a couple different types of leads that we're going to be connecting with. And this comes back to like those hot leads, warm leads, and cold leads, to put it in the most simplest terms. Now, your hot leads, these are the people who are ready to buy. These are your raging fans. These are the people that love you. They like, know, trust you. And they're like, yeah, they're just waiting for you to offer that service. That is what is going to solve their problem. And then as soon as you do that, they're going to be like, fuck yes to it. And then you have your warm leads, who are the people that like, know, trust you, but on a lower level than those hot leads. Maybe they need a little bit more priming before they're at that point of purchase, but they're connected with you. They like you. They're following you. They're engaging with you, right? They actually are interested in you and what it is that you deliver. They potentially see how you can support them. Or maybe they just like you as a human being. And then the cold leads, they're like the newest people. You're generally the newest followers you get, the people who don't know you, the people that don't necessarily like you and like you yet. They need a lot more warming up before they can say, yeah, I really like that girl. Yeah, I really like what he does. Right? They're the ones that need a lot of nurturing. So then we can move them into those warmer stages. But there's different ways that we can identify these different types of leads. And it's all about like how you're activating the content that you're using. And when I say activating the content that you're using, you can make a post. If it's not an activated post, you're not calling anyone out. You're not pulling anyone out of your audience. You don't have CTAs happening, right? You don't have ways for them to engage and interact and express how they feel about what you share. Maybe you could use polls. That's a good way. Maybe you could have call to actions, right? That ask someone to do a specific thing, and that activates the post. Because no longer is someone just reading it or just watching it, but they're actually engaging with it. And we want to create that engagement so then we can actually generate leads within our audience and activate our following base. And the final thing that I want to touch on in this is, what's the final thing I want to touch on? Where am I at? Yeah, that's the final thing I want to talk to, coming off of what I just shared there. We want to activate our audience, right? Because then instead of constantly looking for new leads, we can optimize the leads that we have. And once we activate that audience and we like pull people up, we can then shift them into our prospecting funnel. We can start the conversations. We can get them on the sales call. We can nurture them on a deeper level by offering them a greater level of value. Training such as this, right? And then that's how you move them forward. That is how you activate that audience, and you really take advantage of the community that you are building, rather than solely depending on going and looking externally for new leads and new prospects. Right? Because it's easier. It's going to be easier to find people who are already following you, that are already engaged with you, that are already knowing who you are. It's going to be easier to sell to them than it's going to be to sell to a brand new follower. Because again, those brand new followers, they're on that cold end of the spectrum. They're going to take warming up. Some are going to take longer than others, right? Sometimes it can take up to like 60 touch points before someone like, knows, and trusts you enough to want to buy from you. So that's why we want to be nurturing that existing audience that we have. And there's so many different ways that you can go about that. But that, guys, that's the 3 key pillars that I wanted to share with you guys today that encompass my social media strategy. Okay. So that branding and messaging pillar, then creating content that converts, and then generating and optimizing your leads, right? These 3 key pillars, when you can dive deeper into each of these foundation elements that I mentioned to you within each today, and you can actually understand, gain that depth of knowledge and depth of understanding for each, then you can start making a fuck ton of money online. All it takes is a clear plan. All it takes is properly knowing and understanding what it is that you need to do. That could be the thing. One of these 3 pillars could be the very thing that has been holding you back from getting to that goal within your business that you've been craving for so long. Or maybe it's all three of the things. Have a little bit of a reflection. Take a little moment, take some time to really reflect and really see where it is that you're at right now. Okay? What do you need to work on? What do you need to focus on? What do you need to prioritize? What do you need to learn? What skills do you need to develop? What knowledge do you need to get a greater depth of to make that shift, to make that jump? Because this is where you are now. And this is where you want to be. The only thing that is stopping you, from getting to where you want to be is this gap. And you just need to figure out what you need to do to actually bridge that gap and walk across it, okay? So I hope you found this training valuable. I hope you found it extremely helpful. Honestly, this area of like social media strategy, I fucking love it. I love everything to do with like the psychology behind sales, behind content creation. And like, it's really important. If you've taken anything away from today, I hope that what you've taken away is this understanding and this awareness that your social media strategy isn't just about posting pretty pictures. It's about understanding that depth, that psychology, those triggers, all of it. Understanding it, but then implementing it. It's one thing to understand it, and it's another thing to implement. And I feel like the gap for so many people is in the implementation. Maybe you already knew everything that I was telling you today, but you're not where you want to be because you don't know how to implement this stuff. Okay? So whatever the gap is for you, maybe it's the knowledge, maybe it's the skills, maybe it's the implementation. I trust that you're going to figure out what you need to do to be able to overcome that and take those next steps forward. If you're interested in taking those next steps forward with me, there are so many different levels in which I can support you with doing so, right? I've got my Business Builder Hub, which is a monthly membership that's literally the price of a pizza. So if that's all you can afford to invest in yourself right now, sacrifice takeout for one night in the month. And then you can secure your place inside the Business Builder Hub, and we can start working on that level together to help you refine your business and mindset strategies, so you can see greater success. Or if you're wanting to dive even deeper, come join me either inside the Social Selling Series, which is specifically designed to go deep into all of these areas we spoke about today. The Social Selling Series is literally what this mini training was built based off of. Inside the Social Selling Series, I teach you the full depth of each of these pillars behind my content, my social media strategy and attraction marketing strategy, so that you can literally learn the steps to implement each of these things, as well as learning the knowledge that is needed before the implementation. So that would be the perfect next step for you if you are wanting to dive really deep into this stuff and take action immediately from today moving forward. Or the third option for you guys are my higher level programs. So either my Business Academy or one-to-one coaching, where I can support you on a much broader and a much deeper level within your business. If you are looking to hit those big goals like $10,000 months, $5,000 months, $10,000 months and beyond, then that's the containers that you really do want to be expanding yourself energetically to step into. But I'm going to leave that with you guys today. And if you are interested in taking any steps further with me, you can either DM me at empowerwithm, or I'll put a special link below in the email or in the description of wherever you are viewing this video today, and you can access those resources from there. Okay. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning into this training. I hope that it's been helpful for you. I hope you've taken a lot of value away from it. This has been a fun one. As you can tell, my energy is so high and I enjoyed every single minute of it. But it's time for me to go, and I'll see you guys again very, very soon for whatever incredible value piece you tap into next. Ta-ta! See you later, guys.